Hi, my name is Nan, and you're listening to the Why Blood Same Blood podcast, where we get unseriously curious about cinema. Before we go into today's topic, I wanted to take the opportunity to speak a little about what this podcast is. So, எனக்கு வந்து சினிமா பைத்தியம் ஸ்டார்டிங் வித் தமிழ் சினிமா, சவுத் இந்தியன் சினிமா, அப்புறம் இந்தியன் சினிமா, ஹாலிவுட், அப்புறம் வேர்ல்ட் சினிமா in that order of interest. Okay, so I watch a lot of cinema, I consume a lot of cinema related content, and I talk about cinema a lot. I talk about it with my friends, with my family, with other cinephiles, and just about anyone that will listen. And every time I talk about it, I'm met with either, oh my god, I can't believe you also noticed it. I thought I was the only one. Or I didn't know that. That is so cool. Oh, by the way, did you know this? Abdina, they share some more information. So, in the engagement and interaction is what I have grown to really enjoy about cinema, about films. Because எனக்கு எந்த கோயில்ல என்னைக்கு எந்த பிரசாதம் ஒரு ஏஆர் ரஹ்மான் வீட்ல எப்போ என்ன பிரியாணி போடுவாங்க அந்த லெவல்ல என் மண்டையிலே ஒரு டேட்டா பேஸ் இருக்கு ஆஃப் எந்த ஹாரி ஜெயராஜ் பாட்டுல நடுவுல 2 லைன் மட்டும் வேற சிங்கர் வந்து பாடுவாங்க. அந்த மாதிரி தீஸ் லைக் சீமிங்லி inconsequential minute details அத வந்து பகிர்ந்துக்கிறது தான் வந்து is the fascinating part. Ever since I started a cinema club on Discord, I got to do this a lot more. So எனக்கு வந்து this podcast is an attempt to further that community, and it's an attempt to find like-minded voices and ears. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. Thanks for listening, and we will get into today's episode. இன்னைக்கு we are going to talk about not 7, not James Bond. It's actually the year 2007. 2007, okay, was a great year for Tamil cinema.
பழைய போலீஸ் ஸ்டேஷன் ரெக்கார்ட் எடுத்து பாரு.
It had many releases, and release ஆன most படams were a commercial hit, or they were critically acclaimed, or both. In retrospect, it actually qualifies as a peak year for Tamil cinema, and there is no debate about it. 2007 is a golden year for the industry, a well accepted fact. But இன்னைக்கு what I want to talk about is the different things I noticed about the films of the year, my experiences of watching those movies, whether when they released or what they have grown to be in. இதுக்கு bear with me, I'm actually going to look at my precious Google sheet that I created, where I have basically listed most of the films. I have sorted them by director, actor, music director, comedians, adala, and I've done like pivot tables to find like patterns. I know koncho loser types, but this is what I did. I love sheets. It really helps me think. More than 100 films released that year. I have nearly 50 films in this list. Obviously, ones I didn't know much of, I have never heard of, I didn't add because I can't do justice to it. So the first thing I noticed about 2007 and films is how the Tamil cinema industry was super busy, and the audience were also super fulfilled, because all mainstream actors, including stars, as well as the directors, the music directors, comedians, and the mari, all of them were giving multiple outputs that year, and they were all becoming super successful. Adu or side, innor side la, as audience, as fans, all the watchers were pretty satiated, if I can say, or like fulfilled. What I mean by that is fans of most stars, movie watchers of every kind, அந்த மாதிரி எல்லா சென்டர்ஸ்ல கூட எல்லா sensibilities. So minimum one, if not more, films were there for any type of audience to celebrate and enjoy, and this was across different genres and subjects. First நம்ம வந்து பார்த்தோம்னா ஸ்டார் படம் எடுத்துக்கலாம். Okay, when I say stars, I'm going to list like top 5 that I consider as stars, which is Rajnikant, Vijay, Ajit, Utika, and Asin. And the time of the most popular stars, and they gave both quality and quantity. Rajini, of course, had only Shivaji that year, but by that time he was already making like one film a year or once in 2 years. And his previous release was 2005 Chandramukhi. So 2 years kapro, he this was much hyped and talked about, and it turned out to be a super hit. It was the highest grosser of the year. So superstar fans and the industry itself was happy. It was also a Shankar film, it was also a Rahman film, so it was great. அடுத்தது வந்து, if you actually see Vijay had 2 films that year, Pokiri and Alagiya Tamil Magan. Start of the year la, it started with a banger. Pokiri, I think, remains one of Vijay's top films, even though it's a remake. I think it's the better one. And Alagiya Tamil Magan, while it didn't do as well as Poki, it was still considered a huge success. I personally love that film as well. And then Ajit Kumar had 3 releases that year. The year started with Alvar, which was actually, this was classic Ajit Vijay clash for Pongal. Although Alvar did not do well, I think Ajit sort of made it up steadily. With mid-year la வந்து actually July la Creedam release ஆச்சு. End of year la he ended it with a bang with Billa. Both Ajit and Vijay careers nu பார்த்தா 2007 was like a key year, especially because of Billa and Pokiri respectively. அடுத்தது வந்து Jyotika, right? She had 3 releases, all of which had insane range, and I will talk about range and her in more detail. She had Pachekili Muthucharam, she had Mori, and she had a film called Maniganda, which is like lesser known. All three, or especially Mori and Pachekili, were key films in her career. அடுத்தது வந்து the last one in the star category I want to talk about is Asin. She had Alvar, she had Pokiri, and she had Veil with Surya. So top heroes oda ஒரு summer run that she had that year. Of course, the Surdi role in Pokiri is top tier, but Veilல வந்து actually அந்த கண்ணாடி போட்டு slightly different heroine look மாதிரி. I think it's still memorable. So இதெல்லாம் stars, okay. Starsக்கு அடுத்த ஒரு next rung of actorsனு பார்த்தா கூட Vishal had a fantastic year with Thamarabarani and Malaikotai. I keep saying Thambikotai, but that's a Narayan film that released later. Anyway, Vishal was on a roll, I think, by then, and this was like his sixth or seventh consecutive hit, and 2007 was also great for him. Similarly, Bharat, Bhavana, Shriya, Arya, Sibi, Vikrant, these younger next line of popularity like actors also, each of them had at least one memorable release that year. And smaller stars nu mattum illa, smaller scale films also did well. And when I say smaller scale films la, it was a mixed bag because these were still small budget, humble attempts, okay, but some became hits, or they became popular films. Like Kalluri, for example, was a big success. There was also Kannamuchi Enada, for example, which was a really nice rom-com, and Orampo, which became a cult classic. Also these Lee, Mooney, Andamari, they became successful in their own right. So this brings me to actually my classification. The 50 படம் that is in my Google sheet in my list, அதை வந்து 4 கேட்டகரியா நான் பிரிச்சிருக்கேன். Not even பிரிச்சிருக்கேன், it's just basically I have given it a status. What I mean by that is either it's a hit or a flop. இது ரெண்டு category, which is pretty straightforward because hit na, they became a commercial success or they were critically acclaimed. So they were a hit or a success nu vechikalam. Flop வந்து it didn't do so well at the box office, nor did it get critical acclaim. So it's அந்த வகையில hit or flop. But at the same time, I don't think films can be so black or white, no pun intended, because we also have the next category. I called it icon. Idu vandu, it's not just a hit, but adukku mela they've become like sort of a cult classic, or they've become a milestone film for the actor, the director, or anyone involved in Ramari. Actually, in our first episode la vandu I spoke about the hype cycle. Adula vandu I spoke about how films go through the hype cycle and they go down in history being known as a cult classic, which basically means when they release, they may not have been a hit, but soon over the years they've become popular for different reasons. And the mari. So idella vandu icon la vandu I would tag it. And the last one is a vibe. Vibe one is like it can't be just called a flop. Okay, so flop now, okay, box office it flopped fine, but it had certain other enjoyable factors, like it had great music, it had great comedy, or pop culture illa meme references la vandu neriya pesapadra padona. I called it a vibe, and we'll talk about some examples. So vibe la inda aarambipom. Vibe la, say for example, we have Cheena Tana Not One, which I love because of Vadivel comedy. வீராசாமி, டி ராஜேந்தரோடது, அவரோட அந்த தலைவன் இருக்கிறதுனாலே அது ஒரு வைபான படம், and the most famous. And then Siviன்னு ஒரு ஹாரர் படம் இருக்கு, அது also I called it a vibe. எனக்கு வந்து I didn't know much about it, I've heard of it, but Redditல a lot of people claimed it traumatized them, அதனாலயும் it's a vibe. And பச்சைக்கிளி முத்துச்சாரம் also I called it a vibe because again that didn't do commercially well, but I truly appreciate the attempt because the subject was very interesting, or a mainstream star actor, the role that she did in it, and also the album is timeless. So adinala I called it a vibe. How many films are a vibe abdinu paatha en list la I have 9 films that are a vibe. So Cheena Tana, Marudamalai, Naanavanillai, Pachakili Muthucharam, Sivi, Tottal Poomalurum, Veerasamy, Arya, and Alvar vandu, yeah, I know it flopped in the box office, but it is not the greatest Ajit film, adinale adu or vibe. So adhe madri icons abdinu paatha, we actually have 9 films in this category as well, and I will read it out. We start with Billa. We have Chennai 28, we have Mori, we have Paruthi Veeran, we have Pokiri, Polladavan, Shivaji, Unnale Unnale, and Alagiya Tamil Magan. All of these films, I think Solumode, I think it's pretty self-explanatory why they are beyond a hit. They are goated in most aspects. They are a 10 on 10 adala. Adukapra hits abdinu paatha, you have films like Veil, Tamarabarani, let me look at my list. So Kalluri, Kreedam, Periyar, Satham Podade, and many Nariya Padangal. I have about 17 of those for now. Adukapra flop na we discussed it, so we will not get into that. As always, disclaimer, idi ennoda classification and it could also be popular opinion. You might classify it slightly differently. If you do, please write to me. I would love to know. 2007 is a great year also because of how many types of movies released. Like I mentioned, genres, palavagaigal, styles, sensibilities. Because 2007 la, you had commercial films, you had romance, you had fun, you had horror, you had thriller, you had comedy, and a lot of cross genres too. In no particular order, there was Billa. It was sleek, it was stylish action, it was a remake, it was also multi-starrer, it had Nayan, Namita, Santanam, so all of that. And then you had Pariti Veeran, that was like raw, the rural subject, and it was so beautifully made. Mori, soft, feel good, it was dramedy. And then you had Sattam Podade or Evano Uruvan, which were both thrillers. And then horror, Nason Elias. There was Sivi, of course. There was also Muni, the start of the great franchise. And then we also had commercial family drama. Hari was ruling it with Veil as well as Tamarabarani. Tamarabarani released in the start of the year. It was a Pongal release along with Alvar and Pokiri. And commercial meterla, Shivaji also did super well. It's almost like old and new wave were kind of coexisting or merging beautifully, because in the commercial family formula that was popular in the 90s or early 2000s, those films were made in 2007 and they became a hit. But also these new wave of Chennai 28, Parthi Veeran, Polladavan, Unnale Unnale, these were also like runaway hits. 2007 was like a moment in time when, the old and new sort of coexisted. And I think that's what makes 2007 so special too. Genres மட்டும் இல்லாம, the range of acting we saw, or the range of character portrayals by actors we saw that year is also worth mentioning. First and foremost, I will start with Jyotika, Mori and Pachekili Muthucharam. On a side note, I don't know if it is just me, but I swear I thought Pachekili Muthucharam released at least 1-2 years after Mori, because only when I listed these films, it blew my mind that Pachekili Muthucharam released before Mori. I'm not able to wrap my head around it at all. In fact, it released a week before Mori. Mori, I think, is one of her career bests and my personal favorite. And Pachakali Muthucharam kuda, the character has a dark shade. So realizing she did those two in the same year and they released in the same month, like 1 week apart, is super iconic. Speaking of Mori, we also had Prithviraj. He had a big year in Tamil cinema. He had 3 releases. Mori, he had Satham Podade, he had Kannamuchi Enada. And all 3 were successful films and super memorable for performances of Prithviraj. In fact, I would love to see him come back in a Tamil cinema as the lead and do some more comedy, rom-com subject. And then Dhanush that year had Polladavan and Paratai Engira Alagusundaram. Very different characters, so angiyum sama range, but that's Dhanush. Then Jeeva eduthukitta, he had Katradhu Tamil, which became a cult classic. It was not appreciated that time, but over time it grew to be pretty popular. So he did that, but he also had Pori and Rameshwaram, which were not successful. But again, they were very different in characterization than Katradhu Tamil. Then Raj Kiran, interestingly, had a very nice year with his range in Muni, the intense Muniandi he played. And Kreedamla, I found him to be a very power-patta but very righteous father. And the range was very interesting to note when I looked back at the films. And Prakash Raj also had range, but that's every year affair madri for him, Nazar, and the Mari actors. But it is still super fascinating that he did Mori. And he also did his usual commercial villain characters in Pokiri, Arya, Vyabari, so many more that year. இதெல்லாம் வந்து lot of range. அதே மாதிரி actors also had multiple releases. So அதனாலயும் ஒரு மாதிரி ஒரு busy year. Like I said, Prithviraj, Jeeva, Ajit all had 3 releases. Jyotika and Hassan had 3 as well. Bhavana had 4. இது போக almost 7 top actors, என் லிஸ்ட்ல இருக்கிற வரைக்கும் 7 top actors and 7 top actresses respectively had 2 releases each. Beyond the ones we discussed, like S.J. Surya, Satyaraj, Arjun, Madhavan, Tamanna, Shreya, Priyamani, Meera Jasmine, Sneha, all of them. Solite pola. One more thing I noticed is 2007 was a great year for comedy. Vadivelu had 10 releases that year and every single one of them is comedy gold. Insanely iconic, insanely memorable. And the 10 filmல என்னோட top 3 எதுன்னு பார்த்தா Pokiri, of course, Marudamalai and Cheena Tana. This was a tough one because Arya also had Snake Babu. But I still love Cheena Tana. 2007 release ஆன படங்கள்ல some of the Vadivelu comedies or the Vadivelu characters kind of stump the films. What I mean by that is this comedy is more popular in the film itself. We have from Tavam. எனக்கு வந்து ஆஹா காமெடி தான் இன்னுமே நல்லா தெரியும். More than the film itself. I have not watched the film. Similarly, தொட்டால் பூ மலரும் சக்தியோட படம், சக்தி அண்ட் பி. வாசு, த ஃபாதர் சன் டுவோ. அவங்களோட படம் எனக்கு படம் ஆக்சுவலா நான் பார்த்ததில்ல. பட் வரும் ஆனா வராது. அந்த காமெடி ட்ராக்லாம் சூப்பர் கோட்டட். I think it was a great year for Vadivelu. We also had Vivek. Shivaji, of course, his role is unforgettable. He was as iconic, or he was giving tough to superstar என்ற பேச்செல்லாம் நிறைய இருக்கு. So I love Shivaji and the comedy. One more honorary mention is Freedom. வெட்டியா இருக்கேன்றத சொல்லிட்டு இருந்தேன் அவ்வளவுதான். I love Vivek's character in Freedom. காமெடிக்கும் செம year 2007. காமெடியை தாண்டி மியூசிக்கான ஒரு staggeringly good year, I would say. Because first and foremost, I will start with Yuvan Shankar Raja had 13 releases in Tamil. And அது தமிழ்ல மட்டும். He also had 2 more in Telugu. Every single one of them, and I'm going to look at the list now. Billa, Chennai 28, Deepavali, Kannamuchi Enada, Kattrathu Tamil, Machakaran, Paruthi Veeran, Sattam Podade, Thamirabarani, Thottal Poomalum, and Vel. And Agaram. All of these films, it is like mind-boggling how he managed that year and gave so many enjoyable albums and songs that we adore. And then Mani Sharma, G.V. Prakash, Deva, all of them also had 4 albums each. So music directors were summer busy இருந்திருக்காங்க போல on that year. And finally, Harris Mams, he had only 2 that year, which was Unnale Unnale. That album remains top tier. In fact, if someone did a poll, illa albums for that year, I feel like Unnale Unnale would top that. And he also did Pachakili Muthucharam. Actually, Pachakili Muthucharam, I put it as a vibe and not a flop because of Harris's music and Joe's range, of course. So yeah, great year for Harris as well. Finally, Rahman also gave 2 super hits, which is Azhagiya Tamil Magan and Shivaji. ஒரு side note, okay, Azhagiya Tamil Maganல எனக்கு ஒரு biggest mystery is I don't know how he agreed to do a remix. பொன்மகள் வந்தாள். Rahman is popularly known to not want to do remix because S.J. Surya கூட ஒரு இன்டர்வியூல சொல்லியிருப்பாரு இந்த மாதிரி தொட்டால் பூ மலரும் அதுலயும் only the lyrics are reused, but Rahman wanted to put his own tune, and which is what is the end product. So எப்படி அவர் வந்து பொன்மகள் பண்ணாருன்னு I would love to know. If any of you have know or seen any interviews, articles, please send them my way. ரொம்ப புண்ணியமா போகும் உங்களுக்கு. 2007ல ஓல்ட் வர்சஸ் நியூ எப்படி பியூட்டிஃபுல்லா பிளெண்ட் ஆச்சுன்னு பேசினோம் இல்ல. நியூ வேவ்க்கான ஒரு காரணம் ஒரு முக்கிய காரணம் வந்து நிறைய நியூபீஸ் வந்ததுனால கூட இருக்குமோ. That year there were so many newbies. Debut directors இருந்தாங்க like வெற்றிமாறன், வெங்கட் பிரபு, ராம், A.L. Vijay, Pushkar Gayatri. Fun fact, Prabhudeva and Raghava Lawrence, 2 dancers, both had their Tamil directorial debut in 2007, and both had done 2 Telugu directorials before. I found that to be very interesting. So all of these were debut directors in Tamil in 2007. Adipoga actors were also debuting. Vinay, Karthi, Ajay is a Telugu actor. Shakti, Shiva, Mirchi Shiva would have first credited or lead role vandu Chennai 28. And Venkat Prabhu's gang, individually paatha they have debuted before, like Jay, Shiva, Premji and all of that. But or Venkat Prabhu gang and I think that was the start of it. And while researching, I found that Oram Pola vandu பாடினது வந்து அல்கா யாக்னிக், பட் திஸ் வாஸ் ஹர் தமிழ் டெபியூ. அது ஒரு ஃபன் சைட் ஃபேக்ட். ஆக்ட்ரஸஸ்ல வந்து எனக்கு தெரிஞ்சு எனி பிகர் ஸ்டார்ஸ் டெபியூ பண்ணலன்னு தோணுது. மேபி லைக் ஒன் ஆஃப் ஆக்டர்ஸ் புதுசா நடிச்சிருப்பாங்க தட் இயர். அகெயின் சைட் நோட், I always thought Kalluri was Tamanna's debut because that's how I got to know her, but turns out she has already done like KD and all before. One more thing is, I thought in the Telugu Happy Days she did a film that was also in the college subject. So I used to get confused. I used to think Happy Days and Kalluri are just the same film in 2 languages abdina, but I'm very wrong. Just that 2007 she had 2 hit college based subjects in different languages. One more very interesting thing I noticed about 2007 films is dual roles nariya vanduchu and the year. Epdina Bharat did dual role in Koodal Nagar. Vijay plays dual role in Azhagiya Tamil Magan. Ajit plays dual role in Billa. Vel படத்துல Surya plays a double role. Manigandala வந்து Arjun also plays a double role. Father son இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு character போல. கொஞ்சம் loosely termed duality theme கூட mention பண்ணலாம்னா சிவாஜில வந்து சிவாஜி எம்ஜிஆர்னு superstar played both roles. Kind of dual roles னு சொல்லலாம். Definitely dual looks at least. போக்கிரியில கூட ஒரு மாதிரி dual life னு சொல்லி போக்கிரியில போலீஸ் அப்படின்னு. அப்படி பார்த்தா சங்கி மங்கி கூட சொல்லுவ போலயேன்னு நீங்க கேட்கலாம். அது நான் இல்ல, எங்க அண்ணன் சங்கி மங்கி. கரெக்ட் சொல்லுவேன். இந்த dual roles ன்றது வந்து ஒரு interesting pattern of 2007. I don't think adinala it's extra special, but it's just something I noticed and I wanted to talk about it. One more thing I wanted to mention is a lot of release clash also happened. But adila beauty annana, they weren't clashes because they all did well. Like they were not clashing per se. It was just like they all released at the same time, but it felt like we have space for everyone to win. Pongal வந்து 3 releases like we mentioned. Shivaji படம் வந்தும் subsequent release ஆன படங்கள் கூட had a good run. And நவம்பர் மாசத்துல November 8th, which is Diwali, 5 படம் ரிலீஸ் ஆயிருக்கு. அதுல ஒரு படம் தான் வந்து didn't do so well, which is ஜீவனோட மச்சக்காரன். All of the others did well. And November endல பாத்தீங்கன்னா 3 more films came, and all of them did well except Tavam. Feb also had 8 releases and 6 of them were icons or hits according to my list. ஒரு மாசத்துல 8 மேஜர் படங்கள் ரிலீஸ் ஆகுது, அதுல 6 நல்லா பண்ணுச்சுன்றது. Then that repeated twice that year. That's probably what makes the year so iconic. So beyond the facets that we covered, ரெண்டு fun trivia or facts I learned. சிபியோட லீ படத்துல விஜய் சேதுபதி கூட வருவாரு. So அப்படி பார்த்தா even he had a release in 2007. And we spoke about debuts. இல்ல நிறைய பேர் debut பண்ணாங்க. But turns out மணிகண்டான்ற படம் was promoted as Jyotika's last film. I think after probably her wedding or something, and the time when she stopped acting for a while, which is interesting because that film was not meant to release that year. It was made in like early 2000s, and by 2005 or something it was ready, but it got delayed and only released in 2007. It's interesting how that released the same year as Pachakili and Muri, but Manikanda turned out to be her last. But I think Wikipedia paatha varaiku 2008 la kuda she had some Malayalam release, if I'm not wrong. To wrap it all up, 2007 was a great year, and for all the reasons I spoke about, and I'm sure there are more reasons as well. My biggest takeaway still is that 2007 was the year old formula and new wave blended together so well. That is my takeaway, because Tamil cinema was doing what it knew best, known, tested, commercial formula, but doing it so well, but also allowing a new crop of films and artists to emerge. One other interesting thing is government grant கொடுத்து பண்ண படம் பெரியார். இப்போலாம் I know of only subsidies or early release kind of support அந்த மாதிரி government பண்றது. I'm sure grants என்ற concept still exists, at least in theory, but I haven't heard or know of a big film with a mainstream actor or a cast that is being government funded today. Having said that, I'm also very curious to know if Periyar 2007 release ஆனப்போ did the audience or the public feel like this was propaganda. But regardless of that, 2007 feels like, oh my god, what a time to be alive, either to be in it or around it or just watching movies. எனக்கு பர்சனலா 2007ல ஞாபகம் இருக்கிற எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ் வந்து I watched 3 films in theaters. ஒன்னு வந்து போக்கிரி, distinctly remember watching போக்கிரி night show in Udayam theater. அப்புறம் மொழி, I watched it with my whole family including my grandparents, and what I remember is collectively loving it, and at the end of the movie feeling wholesome, like we were all sitting and we were just like நல்ல படம் இல்ல அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு இதுல we left the theater. And Shivaji வந்து I remember watching it. I don't know where I watched it, but what I remember is அடுத்த நாள் or the next few days school summer buzz and everyone was imitating some antique or the other. That's what I remember about watching Shivaji in the theater and the aftermath of it. Most films I would have watched on TV, DVD, or later online. And one, again, fun fact about myself, I have not watched Polladavan. Actually, I've even watched Parate Engiralaga Sundaram, but I have not watched Polladavan. Maybe I will go watch that film this long weekend when I'm recording this episode. That's my piece on 2007. I loved talking about it. I loved going back and doing some research and, seeing the different combinations, permutations, and my little Excel sheet. So write to me on Insta or Twitter with more facts or stuff that I may not have mentioned or known, and I will see you on the next one.